Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Semi-Professional Academic Podcast. As always, I'm your host with the most unread books on my shelves, Jacob Watts. And joining me today is the hilarious, the talented, the gym girl academic Barbie herself, Olivia Waldridge.
Oh my God, that was an incredible an incredible introduction. Thank you for recognizing both the athleticism and the academic side, which I both feel are subpar, but I am still here, so.
Oh my gosh. Well, Olivia, thank you for coming onto the show.
Oh my gosh, of course. I am really honored to be here, especially when you first came to where you're at now with like me there also, it was like, oh my goodness, we're having a little reunion and it was so nice. So I'm just very happy to have this.
I am too. It's crazy how it all worked out. Like, really.
It's crazy how everything worked out, especially given where we both started and where we're both at now.
I feel like it was a spin-off that no one expected, but like, absolutely not. But like is giving.
It is. It's definitely, you're right. It's giving spin-off energy, and I'm kind of here for it though.
But a successful one.
It's a spin-off that's more successful than the original.
I mean, looking at the source material.
Yeah. I'm hoping for that. I'm hoping it stays that way.
Yeah. Oh, well, how are you today, Olivia?
Oh, I'm good. I was quite productive this morning. I did laundry, despite my cat yelling at me for trying to wash the sheets. I got up and did like a nice little run in the park and was very quickly reminded why I don't run. So that was fun, but nice.
I run my mouth.
That is the best cardio that I could possibly think of. I'm not, like you mentioned, a gym girl. I do love the gym, but I'm not a runner. Let me be clear. Marathon runners absolutely fascinate me. There's one of the people that used to be in our department runs marathons, and she's just like absolute bad bitch energy, and I just can't fathom doing that.
No. Okay, so I have to ask, what do we think about those people that run marathons on Thanksgiving?
Okay, there are two very different types of people that run on Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
There are people like my mother who do like the turkey 5K where you get free beer and alcohol and other things at the end, and they give you a nice little turkey medal that's really fun and comical. And then there's people that run marathons, two very different breeds of people.
Right.
I will never be the latter. Those type of people, I feel like they either have their entire family there supporting them and it's a huge event, or they're very lonely. And that's just my take on that. But either way, it's admirable. Either way, it's incredible, but very against the holiday. Maybe a rebellion against Thanksgiving where it's like stuff your face day, but what's your opinion on that?
Well, I went on a couple dates with a guy and I really liked him. Mm-hmm. There were other issues, but this was the nail in the coffin.
Oh dear.
Where his entire family runs a 10K every Thanksgiving. And
see, again, there's that category. I was right. I feel justified then.
Yeah, no, you're correct.
Beautiful.
You were very correct. So I was just like,
awesome.
Yeah. And he goes, and this is awful, but like it was around like September, like we were going on dates, and he goes, yeah, oh my gosh, you should go with us. We have to get you starting right now, though. And I was like, first of all, you're mid as fuck looking.
Exactly. I would have to be like way head over heels in love with somebody before I start running consistently for them.
With them.
Oh, that's even worse. Because like he's done this since he was in diapers. Like,
yeah. And like, no shade to runners. Like if that's what you enjoy, follow your bliss.
Oh my gosh, it's very admirable. It's an incredible, I don't know if you knew this or not, but I actually did run cross country in high school. So I was in that a little bit, and it was pretty cool to see the kind of mental side of it. It was fun while it lasted, but my body is really not built for that. So yeah. I'm happy that I don't do it anymore.
Yeah. No, I found that out when like I typed in your name because I would love doing my research before a show. God. And I found your NCSA recruiting profile for volleyball.
Oh, that's right. That's back when I was trying to go to volleyball go to college for volleyball. Yeah. That was a dream for a little bit. Very short-lived, but it was there.
But you're very good at volleyball because plot twist, everybody. Olivia and I actually met in a volleyball class.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did.
I was so bad.
It was so much fun. I remember so distinctively, there was one time, I won't say his name, but there was one time there was a guy there who was in a fraternity who talked a lot and could be considered very annoying by certain people. And he was like shouting as I was serving, and I hit him in the throat, and he fell over. And I laughed a really long time about that. It was so funny. I went home with like the biggest smile on my face and I was like, haha.
No, because I was on your team when that happened.
Yes, and I didn't even dislike the kid. Like, I was friends with him, but watching that happen was just hysterical.
You know, sometimes people need a volleyball to the throat.
Oh, I could still, like, I still hear the, like, oh, like, I can still hear it. It's so just disgusting, but hilarious. Oh, gosh, that was fun.
I loved that class. It was such
a fun class. Yeah, I do. I miss, that's the kind of thing that makes me miss volleyball. I actually play volleyball here. And
that's so cool.
I play sand volleyball at one of the bars downtown. But it's really fun. Everyone's really bad, but it makes it 10 times more fun.
I love it when everyone's bad.
Yeah. And then there's always like one or two like really try hard people. And depending on the day, I might be one of them, but that's okay. We have fun.
When you have a chance to spike the ball and just like shove
Oh yeah,
bit,
just
like,
take it. Yeah. That's never me because I'm shorter, but
yeah. But your sets are like amazing though.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I'm very much that same way. Like I'm not really like a try hard, except I don't want to be the worst at something. So like I will try my hardest to be mid. And then
exactly.
And then if that's what gets it, like if my set or like my bump is like subpar or not even subpar, if it's par, I'm like, fuck you.
Like the philosophy of if you're in the woods, you just need to not be the slowest person outrunning the bear.
That's very much my mentality.
Perfect way to be. You know, evolutionarily speaking, that's how we survive.
Yeah, because why would you devote all that energy to being the best at that when you just have to not be the worst?
Hey, we're all about efficiency here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Facts.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah. Says as it took us an hour and a half to start the podcast.
You know, we just needed to like shit talk for a little bit. It's fine.
It's not shit talking if it's true. That's just presenting the data.
It's presenting data. You're correct. We just needed to present the data for like an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it was fine.
Yeah. You can tell we're both scientists.
Presenting the data, maybe in a sub-ethical manner, but the confines of the apartment. So.
You know, if the situation itself was sub-ethical, then presenting it sub-ethically is ethical.
It cancels out.
Negative times negative equals positive.
Science.
That's the thing. That's the thing we were wrong with. They were like two wrongs don't make a right. False. Two negatives multiplied equals a right.
You know, in this instance, you're very much correct.
And that's on PEMDAS.
And that's on PEMDAS. Exactly. What was drilled into our heads is like, what, 6-7-year-olds or I'm not good with that. Maybe 12? I don't know. When did we learn PEMDAS? When did we learn that?
People trying to learn the alphabet at 6 years old.
Oh, you're right. that is kindergarten, I guess. Yeah. I'm really bad. Ask anybody. I'm really bad at judging like events and ages. Now that I'm not at that age, like I know you get your license at 16, 17 years old, but beyond that, I don't know ages and grades or anything like that anymore.
Also, these kids don't look like kids no more.
No, dude, some of them be looking like they're straight 22 years old, and then others look like they're 10 years younger than they are. There's no spectrum.
I feel like we've lost the heterozygosity that is high school age. We have the dominant phenotype being like older looking people, homozygotes or of the recessive baby look. There's no.
Well, everyone, okay, especially for women, or girls, I guess in particular, from ages I think maybe 10 to 20, everyone is wearing a crop top and a tennis skirt, and they all look the same to me. And I can't distinguish who's what age group is who, because I don't want to be oh, you're so sweet, here's some candy for Halloween, and then it's I'm 21 years old. That could very much happen to me because I'm terrible at judging age.
No, same. My advisor, she introduced the lab to her son, who looked to me not a day over 12. And he was just yeah, high school is really hard. I was high school? High school? High school?
I don't know what Maybe it's just because we're older. Maybe this is something that all people in their 20s and in 30s go through, where they look back on what used to be and they're like, wow, I can't tell a difference. Or maybe we're just bad at it. I don't know.
No, because here's the thing. Like, I was going through like my old photos because I was like cleaning out like the storage, you know?
That's always scary to do.
I know, that's a yikes. That's a very traumatic experience. Like it's Snapchat Memories extended version, really. But I like saw a picture of myself and I was just like, this is what 15 years old should look like. This is what 15
You know, you're not wrong. I remember when I was 14, I had like braces. I was wearing like the athletic sweatshirts and in Ugg boots and leggings and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like that's just so... I feel like I'm looking in a time capsule now.
I miss the time when Instagram photos were bad. Like,
when they were those grainy, heavily filtered.
Yes.
Oh, yes. Now, I miss that. I think I still have a couple on my Instagram.
I think I do too, because I don't archive anything.
I probably should.
I definitely should. But I miss that. I
do too, because now it's like, and I don't want to be like that crotchety old woman that's like, they need to go through the struggle too, but they at least need to go through an awkward phase.
They don't anymore.
Character development that they're missing.
They don't. It's like...
What is it? Generation Alpha?
Yeah.
They're all screwed. They have no character development. There's no plot. None of them have main character energy because they simply don't go through that necessary step.
Yeah.
Maybe that's an overgeneralization.
No, I feel like that's very valid. Like, I mean, you're talking to the guy who says trauma is the spice of life.
It is. It's a nice little paprika and the mashed potatoes or whatever you want to be.
If untraumatized people were seasoning, they'd be flour.
They'd be flour. I love Bob's Burgers so much. I
know. I use that all the time. Louise ate with that.
She really, dude. Louise always eats. Are you kidding me?
She's the reason why I watched that show.
Like, I started watching it in college when me and my friend were both like depressing crocheting. Like we were in, like it was cold outside and we were like, we can't go anywhere, so we're gonna crochet and watch Bob's Burgers for 15 hours. And then I just didn't stop watching, and here we are like 4 years later.
Yeah. Honestly though, I have to say it's good. It's really good.
It's a good show. I've gotten a couple people on it, and
also unproblematic, really.
It's so unproblematic. There are like very few instances of issues, and they are quickly resolved.
Yeah, and I feel like they're always called out too. Like,
they are.
In the show.
They're always, they call each other out, and I really love it. Like the scene where, never mind. We're gonna keep going. I don't want to get too far into Bob's Burgers.
Yeah. But so Olivia, for the people who may not be like as familiar with you, would you mind just giving us like a little background so people can kind of like paint the timeline in their
I was gonna say I should probably introduce myself a little bit. Oh goodness, where do I begin? Where should I begin? My conception, my birth. I know about both of them way too much.
Same. I don't. I'd be like, as far as I'm concerned, nothing happened till I got here. I like that. Like,
it's all a big blur. I don't know. The fact that I was both conceived and born in Florida, I feel like says a lot about who I developed to be. And
you had no chance.
I had no chance. I was born in Panama City, and
you
then
were born in Panama.
I was born on PCB at Bay County Hospital, like on a beach. So I grew up having no chance, and then I moved to Kentucky where I had less of a chance, and somehow I got here. But yeah, so because of that start, I grew up really wanting to be a marine biologist, like most kids. And then I was like, well, I'm from Florida, so I'm gonna go back there. And I never did. And then I quickly learned that that's not a safe space for me to be. So I didn't do that. But I grew up really, really into Shark Week. I really loved sharks for a long time. I remember distinctively sitting in like my computer class in like 3rd or 4th grade, and we were allowed to customize our backgrounds, like our desktops, when we logged in for the day, and mine was a shark eating a seal, and I was told that was too graphic and I had to take it down. And every time they looked away, I'd put it back up, and everyone around me was like, that's so cool, and that's who I was. But yeah, I grew up wanting to do that, and then I got into aquatic biology a little bit, and it was really fun, but I realized that wasn't exactly where I wanted to be, and so I got into kind of a harder science, genetics, which you and I both are kind of into now. Yeah. And yeah, that's kind of how I got here. A very twisty-turny journey, but we're here and we're doing great, so.
We love that. I was like, yeah. So, how long did you like grow up in Florida? Like before you moved to
Oh my
Kentucky?
goodness, barely even anything to. I say I'm born in Florida and that's it. I spent maybe a year there. And then they had my brother. Well, they were pregnant with my brother, and so they came back to Kentucky to be closer to family. So, because they're from Kentucky originally.
Oh, gotcha.
They just moved out there to, relax, and then I came in and wrecked everything, so they moved back. No, they love me very much. It's fine. My parents are good people. But so we moved back to Kentucky and Louisville specifically, and that's where I grew up.
I did not know you were from Louisville.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Louisville, not born but raised.
So real. So
Yep.
real. That's what I say about, because like I was born in like Jeffersonville, and I was like born in raised in Austin, Indiana.
Yeah, two very different places.
Two very different vibes.
Yeah, well, and that's when I say like my roommates in college were all from Indianapolis, and when I first got to college, I had a really heavy. I didn't think it was heavy, but they told me I had a heavy country accent, and I was like, bullshit, no way, absolutely not. Like as a baby freshman. And now going back, like when I call my mom, she has a really heavy accent, and I sounded like her for the most part. And my dad masks his, but you can tell it's still there. To me, none of that. This was all told to me by other people because I just can't hear it because I talk exactly like them. But now I've been away from them long enough and in academia long enough to know that I have to talk a certain way. And so I've kind of conditioned myself not to sound like that anymore. And I think that's just a product of being raised in Kentucky.
No, because like my family is from Southern Indiana.
Yeah.
And my mom and dad are. And then like my grandparents are from like Eastern Kentucky. Like,
oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Like
I probably know them.
Probably. And then like Watts, Kentucky, like that's like where our roots are.
Oh wow, okay.
And then like
I need a map because I'm not good at geography, but
and then like some Hazard.
Yeah,
Hazard in there
Kentucky,
as well. So like we got very country Southern accents there.
Yeah.
And so my roommates who are from like in college, who were from all three of them all the three roommates I had were from like Richmond, Indiana, Indianapolis, or Hillsboro, which is like north.
Yeah.
And they all said that I had like a Southern accent. The way I would say things.
And you never know. Yeah.
I really don't. I mean, like when I get mad, it definitely comes out.
Oh yeah. Like when you go on rants, that's when I've been told it comes out for me as well.
Yeah, it's because I just be letting it go, and like I have to like watch some stuff because there's like some really problematic things. So like if you like how it is with certain things, like if you
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah,
like if you don't enunciate correctly, it sounds really bad.
It does. Sometimes it's just funny, but that's only if you know what they're actually trying to say.
Yeah, but like not everyone knows. I mean, like someone tried to tell me that y'all was like super Southern, and I just thought that was like an everyday.
Oh yeah, that's just kind of I mean, now I know, but at the time, yeah, I was like, I always said it, and I don't hardly say it at all anymore because I think that was like a dead giveaway from leading into my accent, and so I just kind of cut that out of my daily vocabulary.
I mean, I do because what am I going to be like? How are you all? Like that just sounds so.
That's true.
Crazy.
I'll just be like, "How are things?" and just kind of leave it at that.
How are things?
How are things?
That sounds like SpongeBob when he was like smooth and like in that.
When he was what did he call himself? I forgot. But it was like Normal Bob or something like that.
Normal Bob, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, how are you?
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
So, raised in Louisville.
Yeah. I was raised in Louisville. My brother was born and raised there, and like I said, I was always going to be the one that's like, I'm going to live out of state, and I'm going to do all these things. And granted, I have traveled quite a bit, but my brother was the one that kind of moved around the country more than I did. I mean, I went to college in Indiana, southern Indiana, which was like 45 minutes from my parents' house, and now I'm here, which is an hour and a half from my parents' house. So
we're working our way.
We're getting there. And so I haven't really lived a whole lot of different places. My brother has, and it's so funny because I was the one that wanted to, and he was the one that was like, I will never leave, and he ended up doing it for college, and he isn't very fond of it, but he's doing well. He's a baseball player at Campbell now.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so he's doing really well. He for any of you sports fans out there, Nathan Waldridge, that's who that is. I don't know how well he's doing this season, but sure, it's fine.
There's got to be something for the eldest sibling into academia to the youngest sibling going for athletics, but also like academics pipeline,
like academics and then D1 athlete. So my parents did well.
No, because oh my gosh, same thing for me.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, no, because my brother, and I'll name drop him because he won't be on the show. But yeah, he ghosted my text and be like, "Hey, do you want to be on the show?" But so I thought I always knew I was either going to go into like medicine or like research, academia, that kind of thing. And my brother, he was bouncing back between a few things, and then he got like an injury his junior year, and then he really fell in love with physical therapy. And
oh wow.
But then he got the opportunity to run D1 track and cross country at the University of Evansville.
So he's a runner too.
So he's a runner.
Back to runners.
Back to our runner theory. And so I'm getting my PhD in biology, and he's getting his doctor of physical therapy.
Oh my gosh.
Now that he's graduated and is no longer running.
Yeah.
So
that's amazing.
The academic oldest sibling and the D1 college athlete youngest sibling, that there's something there.
It speaks volumes to how, and I always hate when people are like, oldest siblings are like this and younger siblings are like this, because I want to be different and I'm not at all. I'm the exact cookie cutter mold for the eldest girl in the family, or the oldest sibling in the family,
eldest daughter syndrome
to the core, and I hate it. And I'm like, I'm not like this at all. And then I'm like, no, I read it and I'm like, wow, this is my therapist's definition of who I am. And it's shit. But no, I've tried to use it to my advantage. I highly motivated, scared of failure, wants to make everyone happy. That's I try my best to do it that way.
Shivers down my spine. Please, this needs to come with a content warning.
It's fine. We're real people talking about real things.
Oh. Sending you to real therapy.
Exactly.
That'd be such a great topic. That'd be such a great episode of the time. We talk real people talk about real things, sending you to real therapy. Honestly, it's something that's not talked about. I think we're doing a better job, or maybe I'm just paying more attention to it. I really can't tell the difference. To bringing up things about mental health, and especially therapy's not weird, or therapy doesn't mean you're crazy. It's not a shrink. I think we're doing a better job of that. At least in more of a less rural area. I think in southern homes, it's still kind of shrink is a pretty common term, but I haven't heard anyone here say it, so I feel pretty safe talking about it. Yeah, no, totally. And I as someone who's gone to counseling, it really does help. And I'm psychotic, but that's another thing. So it just really, I think it also the availability of it has helped destigmatize it a lot, because usually only either rich people went to, or really desperate people who needed it.
Right. There was no medium.
Yeah. So I feel now that we've opened up, and by we, I mean as a society has opened up a lot more opportunities for people to get mental health help and emotional health resources. I feel that is what's leading us into this destigmatizing era of it.
And as terrible as COVID was, I think that was at least one silver lining that came out of it, because I know I worked at Starbucks at the time, and during that time they started this promotion where they would pay for 10 therapy sessions or something like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and so it was fantastic, and so they gave that opportunity, and I know a bunch of other places did as well, and so now it's becoming a pretty common trend for you to have some kind of mental or emotional health coverage in the job that you're in. It's not everywhere, but it's becoming more normal, more normalized. And so I think that's pretty cool.
I think that is really cool. And I'm glad that companies are starting to realize like that's an important aspect of like not just humans, but like especially like as like a PR recruiting like standpoint. Because,
that's very true, yeah.
Because healthy and happy workers produce a more productive environment.
Well, and that phrase also, like as a biologist, it's so interesting to me because it's like you're saying the same thing twice, you know, because when you talk about things like stress and anxiety and depression and things like that, they have tremendous effects on your physiology. And that's just because you don't see it happening doesn't mean it's not happening. You know, highering or lowering your blood pressure, you know, weight gain, hair loss, things like that. Even eyesight going out, which is why I wear glasses. But things like that they're so important. So when you're talking about companies that need to keep their employees healthy and happy, it kind of goes one and the same too, which is, again, a more biological take on it. But
I think it's worse when like people in biological settings who know that those effects cause this do not do anything to help.
Don't do anything about it. Right. You know, it's a hard balance to strike. You know, I'm going to say all these things, but I also have to keep being stressed out to study it. So let's...
Yeah, you know, it's very... Yeah.
Well, even in like so I do circadian biology, which is, you know, for those of you who don't know, it's like rhythmic expression of certain activities. So think about sleep and wake cycles. So one of the running jokes in that field is, you know, if you study circadian biology, your circadian rhythm is just completely fucked. I mean, for lack of a better term, it's you get no sleep, you constantly stay up measuring, monitoring things. It's just, yeah. So it's kind of a little bit of do as we say, not as we do situation.
I feel like that's most biologists.
Yeah.
Because the world will be like, oh, caffeine is so bad for you, stress is so bad for you. And me, I'm just like, totally agree on my like second Red Bull of the day, 2 hours of sleep.
Exactly. But you know what? We are poster children for knowing how bad it is, so.
I know. I mean, like I was losing hair at 22. Like, please, for the love of God.
Oh God, the amount of people going gray in our department alone who are like sub 30 is so concerning.
I know. Well, like people in my lab who like granted like they've hit that 30-year-old thresh mark, but threshold?
Thresh mark.
I like thresh mark.
I like thresh mark too.
They like are starting to go gray. It just happens like when you're like
it's fine.
No. And Olivia, like you bring up like a really good point about your research, and I definitely want to get into that. But like before we get there, I want to stroll down undergrad lane a little bit.
Oh yeah, of course.
So you mentioned you went to college in Southern Indiana. What kind of like motivated that? Like, you know, you said like you kind of wanted to like get out of state, but was there like a particular reason why you chose that?
So I knew that I wanted to go to a smaller school, and that's just because I knew I did better in smaller class sizes with a smaller, you know, instructor to student ratio. And where I went to college was the cheapest option with that same thing. And it was so funny because I applied to I was one of those crazy people that applied to 10 different colleges, right?
Oh, same.
Yeah, exactly. And so I applied to 3 in Florida, 1 in Hawaii, 2 in California, and then another one somewhere else. That was the closest one to where I grew up. And it just so happened that happened to be the most affordable one that fit the mold of what I wanted as a student. And it ended up, you know, not being a bad thing. The first semester was really hard and I think that's just because college is hard. And so, and you know, you grow up really, really fast in a short period of time. And I remember a bunch of people that I was friends with at the time were transferring. And I really thought long and hard about transferring from such a small school because it was very small and it did kind of get to me. It was sub 1,000 students. It was very small. And so I thought long and hard about that, and eventually the deadline came for me to transfer, and I was like, nah, screw it, I'll just stay here. And so then I did. And it, you know, I'm very, very grateful for some of the things that I was, some of the opportunities that I had there. So.
Yeah, I think you bring up a really good point because spoiler alert, everyone, Olivia and I went to the same undergrad.
Yes, we did.
And I would be lying if I didn't have those exact same thoughts.
Yeah.
And I kind of want to go into a little bit, and Olivia, please feel free to clock me and if I'm wrong. But I feel like it was also like it was a very small school, so you had that kind of like closer connections to people. But at the same time, I almost feel like that bred this kind of like not really hyper, but like more elevated academic rigor and almost competition between everybody.
I don't know if I felt the competition as much, but I definitely felt that it was more rigorous. For sure. I remember just recently one of my old roommates from college and I went to the Noah Khan concert.
Oh my gosh, how was that?
It was amazing. Oh my gosh, it was so great. I am just obsessed with that man. But anyway, I digress. We were sitting in my apartment when we got back at like 3 a.m. or something crazy like that, and we were just like sitting outside talking about kind of our experiences in college. And because she is a neurodivergent learner, and so we were talking kind of about our different experiences with that. And she was like, I am just so incredibly grateful for that opportunity, because I would have never passed in the same classes in a larger setting where I couldn't go to the professor for help. And even as a teaching assistant now, when I see these students and they're so overwhelmed in these huge classes, and I wish I had advice for them. But at the same time, I'm so grateful that I didn't have to go through that, because it did allow for a more rigorous teaching style. Because the professor could go up to you like one-on-one and be like, did you understand the material? If not, how can I help? And there were enough students in the class that you could ask them for help, or you can go to the professor. There were a lot more resources available for students, or at least resource to student ratio was smaller at where we went to school. And so I really agree with that. The rigor I think it was 10 times better. And I think it really, really prepared us both for careers in science.
No, I agree, because we'll get into this a little bit, but I didn't go straight into my PhD. I did a master's first.
Right. Which is smart, which is good.
But the academic workload, and I'm not talking about like the thesis per se, but the expectations of classes, like graduate level classes in my master's compared to my undergrad. My undergrad was harder. Like, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
My undergrad was harder.
Yes.
Like, I had and this does not mean like hardly anything, but I had a 3.3 and I was busting my ass in my classes in undergrad. And then I go to grad school, I have a 4.0 without trying.
Yeah. And I completely agree with that. And I have had the same experience, because the classes are just structured so differently between your undergrad. Because undergrad, it's all about, you have to learn all this information and in a short period of time, and they don't really account for people that work or that do research outside of that. Whereas in grad school, it's very much like, we know you're doing research, we know you're working, here's a class, do it at your own pace. Yeah. And it's the structure of it is 10 times more different. And I also think it's because they can actually treat us like adults. Granted, we're adults in undergrad, but the adult I was my freshman year of college versus the adult I am now are very different.
Oh, very same.
And so I was going to say, I think that's pretty standard for most people. So when you go to grad school, they can actually treat you like adults. Yeah. And it is effective. It works.
No, I mean, no, like, yeah, I agree. Mm-hmm. That makes no sense the way I say that. But,
I know what you mean. I agree.
Yeah. Good. And you're totally right, because, I know you worked and I know you did research in undergrad. Yeah. And we'll get into that. There's so many things that like just set it, for anybody who watches this show, like it's like a broken down car. You don't know how you're going to start it, but we're going to get there. It's going to be a different way every time, but we are going to get there.
We are going to get from point A to point B at some point.
Yeah. Some days will be faster. Some days it'll be shorter. Some days it'll be, will this ever get there? But we will get there. But I think with grad school and then taking into consideration research and work, that's very important, because you and I both did research in undergrad and work. And so I'm not trying to dismiss the intensity of it for people who didn't have to do those things.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was very hard. But there was more complexities for people like us who just showing up and doing classes wasn't our whole responsibility.
Right. Right. And I agree. And I was heavily involved, like friend wise, not, romantic with multiple people at a time. I don't do that. But anyway, I digress. But I was friends with people that were on both sides where, I was fortunate enough to know that if I missed a day of work, or if I, had to call in or go home early or do homework during break, it wasn't going to be the end of the world for me. I couldn't do that every time or else I wouldn't have a job. I didn't need the job, let me be clear. But it wasn't one of those situations where they were going to fire me if I was slacking 1 week because of schoolwork. And so they worked with me really well. I had friends that had the exact opposite situation. And so they were very much pressured that was like their number one priority. And then school came second. And it showed for them. And it was, and where we went to school it was good for them there. But I feel like at a larger institution, it would not have been the same case. And then I had other friends who, it was all about school and they didn't have to work, which was great. That's fantastic. They still struggled a lot. So we all struggled kind of the same level of intensity in the coursework, but our different responsibilities held us in different places. And I think that for anybody where we went to school in the type of setting that we were in was, and again, this is everybody's a different type of learner, but for me and for my friends, it was very much that smaller school was much better than a larger institution. But that's just my hot take on that. So.
No, so valid. I don't think that's even considered a hot take. I think that's just a take.
Yeah, that's fair. Cool take, or what is it? A lukewarm take.
Mild take.
Mild take. But yeah, in larger institutions, like state schools often do have a lot of resources for students, but they're also overwhelmed and it's their first time they haven't lived at home and they're trying to get used to buying groceries and doing that, which is its own struggle.
Oh yeah.
And maybe they're also working a job, and so they don't have time to sort through all of these different resources, whereas at a smaller institution, it's right in front of your face and everyone is constantly reminding you of them. Definitely. So it's a bit different, and I was very grateful for getting that opportunity.
Same. I'm very glad I had the small school, given it someone who's been at a very small school to like a medium-sized state school, about like 30,000, and to now at like a very big state school now. I'm so glad my undergrad experience was at that smaller school.
Right, especially because you're a TA as well, and you see it in your students, and some of them just can't. I mean, they're so overwhelmed with everything, and it's, and like I said, I wish I had the right words to say sometimes, but we do what we can because.
I'm glad the lab sizes now though, like they're not like mine. The biggest lab that I have right now is 24 students. Okay. Which at a big state school, that's not bad at all.
No, I don't think it's bad either. I think that's pretty standard. I think they range from like 10 to 30 to 40. I have 35, and so I have 80 total, I think. Yeah. Which can't be a lot, but it's okay. They're great kids.
Yeah, which is crazy because given the fact that we went to a school to where a big class was
that many people.
Like that was a rare exception.
Exactly. I think one of my largest class was genetics.
Same.
And it was exactly, and it was like 35, and I just remember walking in there and I was like, whoa, there's so many people, and it just
I know we were in that
pales in comparison.
We were in that classics hall, like big.
Yes, I know exactly. I don't know, did we take genetics at the same time?
No, we took OChem at the same time.
We took OChem at the same time. That's right. Yeah, no, but the genetics was in the same room. Yeah, for me. Yeah. I fell asleep in that lecture so many times because it's like a nice, warm, dark place, and it smells like home, and it's hard not to stay. It's hard to stay awake.
Low-key, the chairs are low-key comfy too.
The chairs were way too comfortable for that level of material.
I know. I'd be like, okay, like
I need to be in some uncomfortable ass seats.
I need some bright ass room.
Yes. I need like all the lights in my face to keep me awake.
I need all the windows with natural light.
Exactly. I need the sun to, again, balance my circadian rhythm to keep me awake.
The sun needs to be sunning. Come on.
The sun needs to be sunning. Exactly. Yeah. No,
But, and you kind of talked about it a little bit, but like how did you choose like your like major path of study at school?
So I knew going into undergrad that I wanted to major in biochemistry, and I went back and forth on that decision quite a bit. I never officially changed it, but I did think about it quite a bit because I knew I wanted the biological aspect because I wanted to do biology as a career eventually, but I also was really fascinated in chemistry, and that kind of started in high school because I always viewed chemistry as this crazy, like, really difficult concept, and I was better at it than I thought I was going to be. And I was like, wow, maybe I should try to do this because I was always worse at biology than chemistry. And that's just how I'm wired. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, exactly. It surprised me too. And I love biology and I like it more than chemistry, but it just doesn't return the affection. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. So I knew I wanted to, so essentially biology was what I needed to do and chemistry was just kind of for funsies. So I did both.
That's a crazy thing.
I was going to say, which no one has
crazy.
Ever said in the history of anything ever.
That's so crazy. I needed biology, but I just chose chemistry for the vibes. Like, that's very
vibes. Yeah, exactly. That's chemistry for the vibes. That is my hot take. But yeah, so I did that, and then I was pretty happy in that decision, and then I started taking upper level biology classes, and I was like, what if I just majored in chemistry? And I was really close to switching it my, like, junior and a half year. I was like,
so second
semester junior year, I was like, what if I just change my major right now? And my advisor looked at me straight in the face and he was like, you should absolutely not do that. And he was a chemistry person. And he was like, I would love to have you as a full-fledged chemistry person, but do not do that to yourself. And for the first time in my life, I listened. And so I stuck with biochemistry, and I'm happy that I did because I needed the biology, and so I'm happy that I stuck with that.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm so glad that advisor was like, no.
Yeah, no, he was very real with me, and that, again, I think that also had a lot to do with the fact that he didn't have a ton of students he was advising due to the small class size at the school we went to. So and like I've told you in our debrief before this, I did get really close with him, and he was just a fantastic mentor. And I do owe a lot of my current achievements to him because he was really encouraging. And, when I went through pretty much what everybody in academia goes through, like impostor syndrome, like everyone's constantly smarter than me. They're going to find out that I'm a fraud one day. And he was like, no, don't think that about yourself. But, so yeah, that's where I ended up with that. And I was very happy that I did.
No, honestly, I'm so glad that he like talked to you through like the imposter syndrome, because I really feel like that's like almost like a canon event in any academics thing. Yeah. Where and it's not by like, and sometimes it's not even by like anything anybody says. It's just like your own brain.
Like this internal anxiety. Yeah.
And I'm just so glad that you had a supportive advisor who like talked you through that and gave you real advice. I can't wait till I have that one day.
Yep.
I'm kidding. I have that now.
I was gonna say, if you don't have it now, come to my lab.
I have it now. My current advisor, I love her very much.
Well, yeah, and I just, even going back to like high school, I remember I had these events, and this is what makes me think that I'm living in a simulation, because I had this like same sort of person, like my advisor in college. I had this in 6th grade with this old nun who told me that I was better at writing than I thought. And then I had this again in high school that told me that I was better at this than I thought. And then I had this again in college. So it was like all of these people were like snap out of it, And and I think, again, without those kind of people helping me along the way, kind of just pulling me out of my own ass, I wouldn't have been where I am today.
That's so awesome. Like,
so yay for good teachers and good mentors.
Honestly, like I really don't think it's talked about enough, and like we're starting to. Yeah. But just the amount of just impact a positive or negative mentor can have on a person. Mm-hmm. Like, I've seen people absolutely thrive in environments with a supportive advisor, like, on their wings.
Yeah.
I also seen some of the brightest people I've ever met absolutely, like, fizzle out just because their advisors, for lack of a better word, were horrible.
Right. And that's something that I'm really, really passionate about, just because I've had that experience. And I try to do a lot of outreach now, as I should, because that's my position on our student council, or our graduate student council.
I need to start going to more meetings of that.
It's okay. I can fill you in. But
okay, cool.
It's fine. But I try to do a lot of outreach with that, and I try to keep that philosophy when I teach too, because I've seen students who are just very highly motivated just crumble under the pressure that they're putting on themselves. And, I want to take all of them aside and hug them and tell them that they're great and they're fantastic and they're going to do great things. But you can't do that. You can't hug students. That's not ethical. But you also can't do that with every single student. So I try my best to constantly tell students, like, hey, if you need help with anything, just email me, let me know, and I will be here. Here are all your resources, and this is something that I tell everybody too, especially people that I'm meeting for the first time who say, like, wow, like, that's so impressive that you're doing this with your life, yada, yada. And I really strongly believe that given the right support system, you can do anything.
I agree. And
that's something that a lot of people lack. And they don't even realize it. They're just like, oh, this is just how it was. And they're like, no, well, it shouldn't be that way for everybody. Yeah. And if you have a chance to be, and of course, put yourself first, don't overexert yourself. But if you have a chance to be a positive interaction in someone's career, or whether that be academic or industry, do it. Don't tear someone down for the sake of tearing someone down or making yourself feel better, obviously, but also creating these good environments and these supportive environments for students is something that we really, I think, need to focus on, especially at the collegiate level.
I completely agree. And I think, especially because you never know what someone's going through.
Exactly.
Like, you can that person could be like a first generation student who doesn't have like generations of knowledge about how to succeed in college, or anyone to go off who's making this path themselves. You have someone who's working full time to put themselves through school, or it's just, it costs nothing to not be a dick.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. As someone who suffers from being hangry a lot, it's very true. You don't have to let people know you're hangry. You can just keep it to yourself. Like, that costs you absolutely nothing.
Yeah. Like, ugh.
But yeah, no. And that's another reason that I chose to go where we're at now, because that was upon orientation. We had, I won't say her name unless we do later, but we had that orientation speaker talk about imposter syndrome for like an hour and a half. Was our orientation, at least was for my year. And I was like, wow, this is fantastic. It might be a facade, but it's a damn good one. And then getting, a year and a half into it now, I'm like, wow, they've kept this promise that they're going to help support us and always, tell us that we're good enough and that we're smart enough. And, I've had very few interactions, or few and far between interactions since I've been here, where I have felt an outward pressure that I'm not good enough.
I'm so glad you bring that speaker up, because in my orientation, they also talked about that, and they went into specifics, because like for my cohort, it's actually so funny.
Oh dear.
It's actually so funny because every single person of like my cohort at the program of this institution is either a person of color or queer.
Yeah.
So, and
that's how it was for mine too.
Oh, I love that.
And I think we actually tried to come up with a sticker. We put the bi in biology, but like, I don't think everyone was down for that. We really wanted to though.
And I think a lot of important, not important, but like, I think there's a lot of importance in recognizing that people in like marginalized groups, was like, whether it be women, like people of color, queer people, or like an intersectionality of that,
right?
Like systemically have not had long experiences, or like any experience really in academia or positions of power, and also outside of academia, but
right. Positions of power is good.
Yeah. So just, I feel like naturally, and I don't know how like you feel, but for me, like as a queer person, I have a background where 90% of the time I'm the only queer person in the room, and I've been in situations more than not where there's outward, not I shouldn't say outward because that implies it's explicit, but like definitely hints of like homophobia. So I have to not
like
only
tones of homophobia.
Yeah, so I not only have to combat that, but I also have to combat my own brain saying like they're treating you this way because you don't deserve to be here.
You start gaslighting yourself thinking, well, maybe it's me, maybe I'm the problem, you know.
Yeah.
Not to quote Taylor Swift, but
I feel like that song was written about me.
Oh God, my partner and I have a shared playlist, and that song's on the playlist. And I'm like, wow, we both have a similar Taylor Swift appreciation. That made me happy. But anyway, so one of the things that I do as my position in outreach is I try to really bridge that gap for young kids. And having a cohort like ours where we have representation from many different groups, letting young kids see that, I think is so incredibly important. Mm-hmm. And we had a speaker talk about this same thing, just by like psychologically, just seeing someone that looks like you in a position that you want to be in is encouraging. Mm-hmm. Just seeing that is encouraging. I think that's something that may not be talked about enough. And so just having that person in the same vicinity where you want to be in, because, you know, as someone wanting to be a scientist, wanting to be a marine biologist, the people that I were seeing, you know, on Shark Week looked very different from what I looked like, you know, and so that wasn't really a source of discouragement, but it was not a source of encouragement. And so allowing, like, hosting these events on the place that where we both work, for young kids, and especially putting up posters and flyers in schools, where it's, you know, a higher ratio of marginalized people are attending, having them come here and see this wide representation is really, really beneficial. Because, I mean, let's be honest, diversity is a good thing. Yeah. And because you want people that have different backgrounds presenting different ideas to solve the same. I mean, they tell you, think outside the box. How much more outside the box can you get?
And that's the thing. I totally agree. I want to stress that, by the way. I totally agree. Mm-hmm. And it boggles my mind how the same people are being like, oh, you need to communicate your ideas. This needs to have multiple people weigh on this to see if this is actually the best way. Mm-hmm. And then you get multiple people who like go about things to see if this is the best way. And they're like, that's ridiculous.
Right. And it's like, okay, what side of the narrative do you want to be on? Come on. Like, pick a lane and stick to it.
Like up until the point where non-straight and non-white and not male people enter the room is where you draw the line. Up until that point, you're like fully on board with this idea.
Yeah, exactly. And then you get these people that don't look the way that you think they should look. Like, have a different idea. Don't be a different person. And that's just like, that's not how that works.
That's not how that works, babe. That's not how that works.
That's not how that works. And I've been fortunate enough now in graduate school to be surrounded by people of different backgrounds, so we can all approach an idea differently. And it's so, this is gonna sound so ridiculously corny, but it's so beautiful when you present a question and you present an idea to a bunch of people, and we all have like different ways of going about it, and it all comes together, and it's just this beautiful harmony, kumbaya situation, and I love it.
What I'm liking about now is like, I've seen this kind of like with this rise in diversity, equity, and inclusion. Mm-hmm. There's less, I don't know a better word for it, but like pettiness between like differences. Like, I feel like there's more respectful disagreements instead of just absolute slander. Be like, you're a fucking idiot. Like, what are you doing?
Exactly. I can tell you, I've never heard those words from anybody here. So
me neither.
Which is nice. And
the previous institutions. Different
story there.
Subscribe to the Patreon. I'm just kidding.
Oh God. But yeah, no, subscribe to Patreon, absolutely. But
that'd be so funny if people looked it up and be like, "Where's the tea?"
Exactly.
I feel like we could write a book, honestly.
At least like a novella about this, about the blank novella. What's that organism? Salamander, the newt novella.
Oh, I'm trying to think of like a play on words. Like, give me a sec.
Okay.
The horror of instead of
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Oh, we'll workshop this later. It's fine.
workshop this later.
Be on the lookout for this novella coming to stores near you. But yeah, so that's
adapted to Netflix.
Oh gosh, we have to be in charge of the cast.
Of course.
Yes, exactly.
Do we want to play ourselves?
I don't know if I could take that pressure. I want to have like somebody else play me. I can criticize. I don't want to. I can criticize myself. Way too much. So
I cast Dwayne Johnson to play me.
Wait, can I? Who do I want to play me?
Dwayne Johnson.
No, Kevin Hart. Kevin Hart. Wait,
that'd be so good. That
would be so great.
That'd be so good. I mean, like
No, what's even funnier is that Kevin Hart is going to be speaking the words of a white female, i.e. me.
They play us, we voice ourselves.
Kevin Hart, if you're listening to this and you like the sound of my voice, come to me.
Oh. Dwayne The Rock Johnson. You don't have to be in the movie, but I'm single, so.
Oh, Kevin Hart, I am not, but thank you for your contribution, so. Respectfully, no thank you.
Kevin Hart, I'm not single, but thank you for your contribution.
Thank you for your lack of interest.
I say this as if they're
listening out in the ether. Yeah, no, Dwayne Johnson definitely listens to this. Are you kidding me?
Are you kidding me? He's between his own like movie company and his getting up at 3 a.m. to start his workout,
which is not good for your circadian rhythm.
No.
So, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, you're kind of going against yourself right now, bud.
I know, but
you could do better.
But I mean. If Dwayne Johnson rocked in the room, I'd be like, you're amazing. You're doing great. No notes.
Honestly, I don't even know what I'd do. I think I wouldn't be able... I do this really bad thing where I tell myself, like, I have these scenarios in my head, and I'm like, I would do this, and this, and this, and then when it happens, I just freeze. And I don't do anything.
No, I do that. I also do you have fake arguments, like, with yourself?
All the time. No. What I do is that a situation happens. I smell a little bit, like a tiny bit of what's the word I'm thinking? Not adversity, of
conflict?
Conflict. Yeah, I smell just a little bit of conflict, and I'm like, okay, here's how the worst thing that could possibly happen, and here are all the things that I'm gonna do, and then I give myself a panic attack, and then it never happens like that.
No, I do the same thing. I also do this things when like things go really well for me. So, so for the people at home, by the time this airs, this will have been like a while back. But last week, like the time we're filming this, so about like a few months before you guys hear this, the podcast had officially been heard in every single continent.
Woo!
Thank you. I mean, not counting Antarctica, but like no one lives in Antarctica. Let's be real.
Except for flies. But they don't. I mean, we don't like flies. Flies are. Sorry, you study some flies.
Yeah, but I'm talking about like people. Like no people live in Antarctica. No. So that's officially been heard on every single continent on the globe. And don't get me wrong, like it's not like a huge audience. Like we're very grateful for our audience, but I was like practicing, and like I took this like a very like a Dr. Pepper Zero Sugar, and I rehearsed like a whole speech of an award I got. And I was just like, hold on, if it would be okay with you all, I'd like to like recite it for you.
Oh, please.
Okay.
Please.
So I gotta get into character here.
Should I announce you?
Yes, please.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, Jacob Watts, host of the Semi-Professional Academic Podcast, here with me tonight to accept his #1 podcast in the world. Jacob, if you would like to say a few words.
Oh my gosh. I would like to say this is a shock, but I'm so talented, and it's so... You all don't know the struggle of being so young, hot, talented, and successful. I wish I was like you regular bitches. Like fully acting like I broke the mold. I was like, the glass ceiling had been shattered.
You were your own mold. You didn't even need a mold. That glass ceiling, not even there. No one else could possibly break it the way that you just did.
Yeah, like...
Youngest person in the world to receive this.
Acting acting like I don't even know. Like I do that for the most basic things. And like anyone who's met me like really knows that like I do say these things in real life, but it all stems from, to tie it back into what we were talking about,
right.
We love a loop, is I kind of not grew up, but like I have a history with environments where my mentors have not been the most supportive, and some were that borderline on abusive, like really.
Yep.
As words by my therapist, Rachel, if you're listening, I love you. I'm doing great though, but so I developed this kind of like, oh, I'm doing amazing, I'm doing great, I'm fantastic, I'm wonderful, because it evolved as kind of like almost like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
From constantly like being like ridiculed or talked down to. Like I had to kind of like do that as kind of like self-preservation.
Yeah, to like shove everything down into you are ready to handle it, but you never let yourself handle it.
Yeah.
You're an oldest sibling too, right?
I'm the oldest sibling, I'm the plus size sibling, and I'm also the queer sibling.
Yeah, that comes with a lot of shoving your shit down until you can handle it one day in the far, far future.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Yeah. And one of the things that like in undergrad, like it can't, like people told me I was like very cocky because of that. And I was
really?
like, yeah. And I was like, this is a facade. Like this is
I
all
thought like I guess I could see where people would think that, but I never thought that. I thought you were just fun.
Oh, that's good. That's the vibe I went for.
Fun and relatable, I think, was definitely like you were a safe person that I could like talk to and interact with.
That's honestly like what I aspire to be so much. It's just like someone who other people feel safe talking to. Yeah,
and I, like I've said before, especially with students, I do the same thing. I get that too.
Yeah. Okay, so I know we've like touched on it a little bit here and there, but can you, in very layman's terms, for the people who may not have as, let's say, experience with circadian rhythm and the kind of research you do, can you talk us to a little bit about like your particular research and like what you can disclose at this time?
Yeah, exactly. I don't want to disclose too much because again, it's always changing, and so it might be different come when this airs. But the one thing that won't change is so I study the genetic changes over time or genetic evolution of circadian rhythms, and what that means is that we have certain little things called genes in our body. I don't want to get too elementary, but we have genes that regulate certain activities in our brains and in our bodies and every tissue and every cell, yada yada, in biology. And within those genes, one of the activities that I study are circadian rhythms, and it's a lot. So I'm trying to think the best way to like explain this to where it's not too jargon heavy, but basically a good example of a circadian rhythm or let me just tell you the definition. A circadian means daily. So it's these daily rhythms that happen at approximately 24 hours, so they occur every defined day, right? So you can think of sleep wake cycles as a good one. You start to get tired, and whether you are a morning person or a night person, or you have some kind of sleep disorder, you typically start to get more tired as the day goes on, and then you fall asleep, and then a certain time passes, and then you wake up again, and that happens in this cyclic cycle-like manner. And so what I study are the genes that keep this thing going. And so the biological definition or the scientific definition of circadian rhythms are self-sustaining oscillators, or this self-driven cycle that is temperature compensated, meaning that within the range in which the organism typically inhabits, so like humans is like 98.9 degrees, like between 98 and 99 degrees is when this temperature compensation comes in. And so these rhythms persist despite this variance in this particular range of temperature. But they are self-sustained cycles that are temperature compensated and occur at approximately 24-hour intervals. And so the genes that regulate this ability to be self-driven is what I study. And I would love to get more into it, but I don't want to get too jargon heavy because it's absolutely fascinating. And I don't have a physics brain, but this is very it's very machine-like, and I definitely was hazed when I was first in this lab looking at like oscillations and periods and tau and all of these different wavelength terminologies, looking at these circadian rhythm outputs called actograms. I had no clue what I was looking at for the first year, and it took me forever to understand what it meant. And again, because I don't have a physics brain, and if I did, maybe it would be easier. But it was very fascinating when I got into that kind of physics of it, of how it just goes on its own. Everything happens on its own, and it's just so incredible. And so I study the genes that help that to go. And the genes are different in different types of organisms. So like in a bacteria, they're going to be different than in a human. It's going to be different in an insect. So they're slightly different, but it's the same kind of theme.
Right.
Across the kingdom of life as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. Like, that's really interesting.
And I never thought I'd get there. I never, ever in a million years think I would study circadian rhythms. I was always kind of interested in it, but I was never like, yeah, I'm going to be a chronobiologist one day. And here I am.
Here we are.
Yeah.
I always said that, like, I was not going to work with insects.
Yep.
And at all the institutions I've been at, all of them have involved insects in some way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. The organisms that I have worked with have all kind of been the similar aquatic nature, which, fulfilling my childhood dreams of being a marine biologist to a certain extent. But so a little bit of my expectation was fulfilled, but definitely not the way in which it happened.
It's just wild, especially Especially I feel like as you learn more about a subject, which then like this is like I think this is universal across the board. You learn about different subdisciplines within that.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Like, y'all think that I knew anything about like just like to quote my master's thesis here, like Wolbachia infection and cytoplasmic incompatibility? Of course I did not.
No. Biology is a huge field. It's huge. And even within the disciplines in biology, like, I like genetics, chronology, parasitology, evolution, they're all so, you break these down, and if you had like a whiteboard, and you had each one of the disciplines on there, you're going to have at least 10 sub-disciplines from each one of those disciplines. I mean, it's a huge field. It's huge.
It's so huge. And like, I tell people all the time, biology is simultaneously a rule that can never be broken and a wave that is never confined to a rule.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I completely agree. It doesn't make any sense, but it makes all the sense in the world.
Just the ones who get it.
Yeah, I mean it's a hard field to describe if you're not directly in it. It's
literally.
Yeah, it's a lot happening at once, but yeah. So especially when I talk about, and I love what I do, and I'm sure you do too. But it's hard to communicate such a specific thing to a wide audience, which is something that science teaches you how to do because we need to bridge that gap in communication. But at the same time, you're like, you just want to scream at the top of your lungs how cool this thing is with all the jargon that you've learned because you took so many years to learn it. And now you have to like go back and explain it in layman's terms. And it's a great skill, but it's also like, man, I kind of want to use the words that I just learned.
Yeah. For those of you who aren't familiar with this, you literally almost drive yourself insane learning the terms and definitions and concepts just to explain it like you never did any of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the gist of that. And then, you write a paper or so on that and you can use the jargon, but you first have to define all of the jargon, and which is it's a good thing. So for readability, for I'd like my parents to be able to read anything that I publish because I want them to, be proud of their little girl. But at the same time, I spent so much time on this.
Yeah. Well, speaking of, and this praise might come a little bit late, but Olivia just had her first publication in her career.
Yeah,
congratulations!
Yeah. Thank you. It's learning modalities in Degesia tigrina and a flatworm in the free living wild-caught Dagesia tigrina, which was a project that I did in undergrad, and I was, happy to be able to do that. It taught me a lot about science, a lot about writing, and a lot about public speaking too. So it was a pretty cool project. And I, even before I started studying flatworms, I was really interested in those little tiny black things that were in the creek. I had no clue what they were. I remember I asked like my 4th grade teacher on a field trip one time what those things were. And she didn't answer. And then ever since that day, I was like so unsatisfied. I needed to know what it was. And then, again, We Love a Loop came back, and that's my first publication, is about different ways of learning in this tiny little worm, which is just the concept itself that something so simple can present learning is pretty cool. So
no, that's so cool. And like,
yeah.
That's so amazing to have a publication so early in your career.
I'm very, very grateful that I was able to have that. I'm very happy that happened, because, you always, when you do research for on one topic for so long, you're in these lab setting for 12 hours on end. You're like, God, is this worth it? Like, what am I going to do with this? And this was something that I did in my undergrad. So it wasn't even like I was doing it for a degree. I didn't get any credits for this. This was very much just because I wanted to do research. And I remember my roommates in college were like, why are you doing this to yourself? Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't have an answer for you. Maybe it's because I thrive off too much pressure. I don't know. But yeah, it all came to be worth it. And I was very, very grateful for that. Yeah. Definitely came as a surprise, because I graduated and I left, and then I, communicated with the people that were also authored on this paper a little bit of the data and the methods that I used after I graduated, just so that they'd have it. And then, a year later, they were like, hey, yeah, it's published. And I was like, what? You're kidding. Like,
but that's great though.
Yeah, I was really happy about that. And I'm sure I'll get some more in grad school with the people that I'm working with now, who are just absolute gems, and I love them both so much.
We love that.
Or all, I guess, because it's more than just 2, but it's 2 I see every day, and then, the rest of the people that I work with, so.
No, and like, obviously, like, I mean, and I want to stress, like, your career, like, as a scientist, mm-hmm. like, before the publication, always valid, always valid.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You learn, even when you don't, like what I was saying, even when I was like, oh my gosh, this is ever going to be worth it, I still learned a lot, and I was very much, those opportunities, and that alone on my CV and on my resume is what helped me get to where I am now. So it was worth it, but
yeah. And I'm not saying that like, oh, now it's worth it, right? I mean,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
I just want to drive that home, but like, it's always like so fun, like when you have.
It is so much. It's like it's my birthday and someone made me a cake, and it's just like, it feels great, and I'm very, very happy about it, and it makes me feel more validated as a scientist, because it's. You do still have these instances of imposter syndrome, even after you've been told time and time again like you're fine, and it still is like, well. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I've fooled everybody, including myself. And it's...
Yeah. No, I struggle with that a lot. And then I remember it'd be like, I don't think I have the follow through to do all that.
Yeah, exactly. It's like but then, you're sitting at home at night, and you're thinking about like all the things that you've done, or you're just reading your own, description of past experiences, whether that be a CV, a resume, or what have you. And you're like, wow, I am actually kind of the shit. And it's a good feeling. Yeah. And it's something that I think we definitely need to do more.
We really should. Because this is how bad imposter syndrome is. Mm-hmm. We somehow, like, an academic has somehow think that they fooled an entire admissions committee.
Twice!
with almost decades of experience.
Yeah.
Looking at candidates. A PI who is established in their field and has taken on so many successful students, has so many papers, and a university to give them a job that not only pays for them to go there, but a stipend to live off of. Mm-hmm. We have formulated that scenario is more likely than us just being good at this. I want people to know, like...
It's so true.
It's so asinine, but in your head, it makes so much sense to be like, I'm just a great liar, manipulator. Like, they've never seen anyone like me before. And
it's so funny because as an individual, I am a terrible liar.
Oh, no,
so for me to think that I somehow in that one instance did very well. Lying is just, like you said, asinine.
Yeah.
And as scientists, we know, we study fact from fiction and have somehow convinced ourselves that this absolute fictitious tale is true.
Like, we somehow think that we have lied and manipulated almost hundreds of individuals out of like thousands of dollars in terms of like tuition and everything.
That is very true, yeah.
Like, our brains have told us that's a more likely conclusion than us just being qualified to do the job.
Yeah. And even as we say it out loud now, we're like, oh yeah, that's crazy. Am I going to go home and think the same thing? Yeah, but like...
Oh yeah. Again, I'm not known for follow through.
Exactly. But that's another reason I love the particular department that we're in so much, is because they day in and day out remind us like, hey, you're doing a great job. Like, this is fantastic. My advisor in particular does a great job of just like popping in and being like, what are you doing? And then he's always like, that's really cool. Like, he's not only is he very interested in what I'm doing, because he should be, because I'm costing him money, but he I'm literally getting paid from his grant. So not only is he interested in that, right, but he's also just as a scientist validating my own findings. He's like, that's cool, you're good at this, like, you guys. And he's just such a sweet person. Like, he looks at me and my lab mate both and is like, you guys are doing such a great job. Almost like a dad move, kind of. But it's just, I appreciate it so much, and I need to tell him that again. I don't tell him enough.
I love that. I love it for you so much. I love it.
I know, and I'm so happy that because he actually, I don't know if you know this or not, but my advisor's older, and he actually came out of retirement. He was retired, and then he was like, I'm bored, and then came back. And so
That's crazy.
And so he retired from everything, and then was like, you know what, I kind of still want to do research. And so he came back and then took on me and my lab mate, and we're doing what we're doing now. So, and he, again, as an older scientist, he's just a tiny bit, not a lot, just a tiny bit out of touch with some of the more recent methods that we utilize as biologists. And so he's fascinated with everything that we do. And so he's constantly like, that's amazing. And we're like, this is standard.
I love that, though. I love that so much.
Yeah, and so like anything, and especially what I do, so I do bioinformatics.
Yeah.
And
oof.
Yeah, well, I like it. And so he's just like fascinated by everything. Like, I click a button on a computer and he's like, wow. And I'm like, it's just the enter button. Like, come on.
But why does that mean now?
But no, like 10 years, like not even 10, like 3 years ago, if I was like in the background of my office, just like looking at me working, I would have been like, what is she doing? And it's just, and again, it's just with the right amount of the right support system and the right people telling me how to do what I'm doing is gotten me to where I am. So
I love that so much for you.
Yeah.
I love seeing grad students thrive.
Yeah, yeah. Any way that I don't thrive is usually due to my own problem, not the problem of the department.
Oh my gosh. Well, Olivia, we're approaching the end of the interview. Okay. So this is a question I've been asking everyone on season 2.
Yeah.
If you were to go back in time at any point in your academic or professional career, what's one thing you would say to past Olivia?
One thing I would say, I talk a lot, so it may not be just one thing, but
Me too.
I would definitely tell her that it is okay to switch interests. Because I remember the first time that I because like I've said 100 times, I wanted to be a marine biologist. And I applied for fellowships, for internships to do that. And time again, I was rejected. I think I was rejected out of at least 25 applications for internships along the sea and on boats and all this kind of stuff. And so I never really got to do that a whole lot. I did eventually, work a little bit with aquatic in oceanic biology. But at that point, I realized it wasn't really for me. And I went through a whole, oh my gosh, what have I spent my entire time doing? I need to just keep going and do this. But I was 21 years old. I was I was just starting my career. And so I went through this whole thing of thinking that I would be an absolute failure as a scientist if I switched now. And I hadn't even really started my career yet, which is asinine.
That's so crazy.
Yeah. And so looking back at that exact moment, I would tell myself that it's okay to switch. And it's better for you to switch than to continue to try to do something that you're not fulfilled by.
Yeah. I mean, hey, you're looking at the king of switches over here. I switched from pre-med to like bio, like research. I switched from behavior to microbiology with bacterial infection and gall wasps.
Yep.
Which I do not have the background to do any of that. Really.
Imposter syndrome again.
No, I really don't. I'm not like this is not imposter syndrome. I took 0 microbiology courses. I took 0 bacteriology courses, and I took 0 entomology courses. So then, I come in. I was like, yeah, I'll just do this. Like,
but don't forget, you were assigned that position by someone who was qualified.
Yes, but I came up with my own thesis project.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So like, I was just like, yeah, I'll just do this. And the one thing about me is I don't know if it is the gayness in me that's doing this, but I feel like I have the ability to do anything that I want. And despite
are you omnipotent? Like,
despite not having the training to do so, I'm just be like, yeah, I could totally do this. And
yeah, right.
You know, I got the degree, so like it does not.
So you did.
I did do that. I did
exactly.
do that.
Maybe you are omnipotent.
Plot twist: I'm actually got. I'm kidding.
The title of the episode, Jacob is actually a deity.
no, I never name the episodes after anything I say. It's always something my guest says.
Oh, dear Jacob, what? I cannot wait for the title of this one.
Well, Olivia, I just wanted to thank you again for coming on to the show.
Thank you for having me. This was so much fun.
I had a absolute great time. And is there anything you would like to say or talk about before we
Oh my gosh. I think we covered a lot of it. Stay in school, kids. I guess.
Don't do drugs.
Don't do drugs, or at least if you do them, be safe. Don't do hard drugs. Stay in school. That's all I got.
Every after school special ever.
Exactly. I mean, it's good advice. Like,
facts. Olivia, where can the people like follow up on like, your life and your publication now and your future publications?
Yeah, so I don't have any kind of like academic social media. I just kind of have mine because I feel like that captures my my ish enough. So yeah, I do have an Instagram. It's my first name, Olivia, and then _ Marlene, Marlene, and 27.
Sweet.
That's it. That's just it. That's my Instagram, and I think that's the same as my Facebook, but Facebook's mainly for, I guess it's a little outdated, but...
I mean, the podcast has a Facebook page. So.
Oh, well, perfect. Then yeah, I'm on both. I'm on both, and I talk about both my life and academia and everything in that.
Slay.
So, yeah.
And Olivia's social media info will also be listed in the video description.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
So, well, Olivia, thank you so much for joining us again.
Having me.
I had a great time. Yeah. And for everyone else out there, remember, as always, I'm your host, Jacob Watts, and dump him.
Facts.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye.